Hello. This is Hifza Pervez, your host. Welcome back to another, yet the first episode of 2025 in our series Building Bridges, Not Walls, which is a series where we actually try to break down the barriers and open up conversation about mental health and well being. So, just like the name is mentioned, legal battles and mental health, two worlds that often collide together but rarely spoken about in the same breath. So, when people think of the legal disputes or legal battles, whether it's divorces, custody battles, workplace harassment, they always think about the laws, they always think about the evidences, they always think about the verdicts. But beneath all of that is lying the unspoken emotional toll, the psychological struggles that can either make or break a person of how they are coping up with the system. So, mental health, on the other hand, is still largely overlooked in these battles, despite its very undeniable, a very direct relationship with the justice or fairness. So, today we are going to break the silence. We are going to explore how law and mental health actually intersect, why that link is extremely important to understand, and how both of these worlds or both of these fields can actually work together to make a more compassionate system. So for that conversation, joining me for that all of that conversation are two experts who are bringing their expertise, opinion, who are bringing in their unique perspective into the table. On the table, we have Dr. Bilal Shadani, the clinical psychologist. I think you're all already aware of from
Hi
our
there.
previous session, the guy behind the series. And with us is also joining Fazli Kadir Khan, a practicing lawyer with years of experience in handling very sensitive cases from divorces to workplace harassment. So he's an advocate of High Court for our legal reforms with over 10 years of experience in the field of litigation. He's also a British educationist and also a partner at ANZ Partners law firm. So, without any delay, welcome both of you to the conversation. How are you two doing?
Hi there. No problem. All good. How you doing, Fuzzly? All good?
I am good. I am good. How are you guys doing?
All good. No complaints. Just to sort of set the tone. Fuzzly and I actually went to school together, so we've known each other for a very long time. He's an absolute gentleman and a scholar, and very proud that his firm is actually, I believe, what was it, Legal 500? Was it?
Yeah,
Is that what it is? Yeah,
yeah,
there we
that
go. So his firm is also in the Legal 500 list. So very proud of him and his achievements. So when we were discussing this topic, Hifsa and I, your name was the only one that was going in my head. I was like, yeah, we got to get him on. He's the only guy I know who would do this topic justice. So thank you so much for coming on, taking time
no,
out of your schedule.
thank you for having me. I'm humbled that you thought of me. I don't know. I hope to live up to your expectation and your, you know,
No, no,
the,
nothing like that, man. Just happy to have you here. It's been a while.
uh,
So
it, it's been, it's been.
so so yeah, there we go. What are we thinking, Hifsa? What do we have on the table for today?
First of all, it's very nice meeting you, Fazli, and especially coming from the whole background where we are completely unaware of the legal things, we are completely unaware of the law. Whatever happens, we have absolutely no clue how to move forward with any of that, and if we should need to move forward or not. So pretty much very excited to know about the legal details. So I think to start things off or to kick things off, I'll address the elephant in the room right here, that mental health, the fact that mental health is not given the importance that it actually deserves when it comes to legal battles. So, which has to be the most important thing when it comes to a human being dealing with any legal battle. So, from the psychological point of view, I'll ask you first, Dr. Bilal, that the struggles, the emotional and psychological struggles, how do they manifest when a person is going through a legal battle? Because obviously the impact can be pretty strong while they themselves are unaware.
So the thing is that, in my observation, because there's a very stark difference between hearing what people tell you and what you go through yourselves. When my father passed away, it was a massive struggle dealing with the legal system because more often than not, we would think that everything was taken care of, and then something completely random would pop up saying, "Oh, but we can't proceed without this." Even though, in as a layman on the outside, it was just like, but this won't change anything. This doesn't take away from what we're trying to do. To which, unfortunately, the courts were beholden and saying, no, sorry, that's the procedure. And we can't change the procedure, so you have to follow it. So it was a lot of running back and forth, get this, get that, get this, get that. And during the whole time, I just remember thinking one consistent thought was, oh, I'm going to blow up the courts. So, not necessarily the nicest thought, but I was so thoroughly frustrated with the way that nothing was transparent. I think that's the best way I can describe it. It wasn't transparent to us. There was always something else that needed doing, or something here, or something there, or this person's not here, or that's not there. There were 100 different hurdles, and I can't, at least in my experience, none of them were in my favor. None of them made the job easier for us, right? It eventually took, I think, about 10 months for something that we were told was very routine with regards to my father's passing. But 10 months, considering you have a full time job, you have to look after a house, you have to look after a million other things, and you have to take time off from work, which is a problem for a lot of us who are working. And then when you go and you're told that, oh, we're sorry, the judge isn't available, so please come back next week. So yeah, needless to say, very frustrating. In terms of my clients, though, many of them often come to me and they're like, "Well, what do we do with the legal side?" To which I was like, "I don't know. I'm sorry. I really can't help you. I can help you with the mental stuff,
Mm.
but that's really all I can do for you." Um, which again is why I thought of Fuzly the first thing, because I'm sure his insight is very relevant over here.
Yeah. I'll move to you firstly because coming from a legal standpoint, do you think that, for example, in 2025 now, mental health is taken a little bit seriously now in the legal battles, or it's still like sidelined?
Um, okay, so there is. I don't think that there's a simple yes or no answer to this. If we look at it in broad strokes, or if we zoom out, it would seem that the answer is unfortunately no. But it is considerably more nuanced. The reason for that is, I mean, if we look at just the trends which are developing and which we've seen even on the media, and then a lot of things which have not been seen on the media. So, for example, initially, prior to 2001, um, the law which would regulate mental health or persons afflicted with mental health issues was called the Lunacy Act. And that dated back to 1912.
Mm.
And then that law was finally repealed and changed in 2001, where we got the Mental Health Act, the Mental Health Ordinance, sorry. But again, that law in and of itself, it's quite lacking. The definitions contained in it, the remedies which it provides, the forums, uh, it's not adequate. It's not adequate. But if you see that in the context of the society that we're living in, where mental health is officially a non-issue, it's something that's swept under the rug. It's something that you don't talk about. You're not supposed to talk about. And if you do talk about it, there's, something wrong with you for just having that conversation. Um, but this thing was highlighted, I think, with the Zaid Jaffer case. I mean, that was all over the media, and that sort of propelled, mental health and mental health issues into the limelight and into the public zeitgeist. And that started a very necessary discussion on the kind of things people are going through. And recently, in the last couple of years, I've seen the courts take a more nuanced approach to deciding matters, especially matters relating to children, to child custody, where they've started saying that, look, as judges, we are not equipped. We don't have the tools to make assessments on the impacts that our decisions have on children who are developing. So we need to get a professional view on this. We need to get a professional take on this. what impact would it have on children? So I think even though my initial answer on the broader issue is no, but again, like I said, it's a bit more nuanced. There is a shift,
Mm.
and I think that's something that's going towards positivity.
So I find it funny because the thing is that the word lunatic is something that has so much baggage attached to it. I know for a fact that in the UK that word is completely sort of disassociated when it comes to anything relating to mental health. Like they refuse to allow that word even into the conversation.
Yeah.
It's it's so it's I mean in my mind the only thing is it's up there with the N word, and that is how much it is just considered such a no go. And yet when our law is very openly calling it the Lunatics Act. So but sorry, yeah, fair enough. That's wow, that's I hadn't thought of it that way. So that thank you. That's actually very insightful.
So, Dr. Bilal, you said something like it gets frustrated because I have personally been there more than once to be in a legal thing. Um, it's a very common practice to just, even for example, if you are dealing with a very simple legal dispute, it's as simple as it can get. It still takes months.
Mm.
For starters, a couple of months is like no time. Why does it take that long for things that are like pretty simple on paper? It doesn't require so much of complexities or so much of evidences and everything. Why does it still happen that way in the legal system when it can be done in a one or two hearing?
So I think obviously I'm going to defer to Fuzzy on this, but I think my version of this is someone on the outside is that either there's too many frivolous cases, like there's too many people coming up with too much work, one, or alternatively, the system is just so archaic. It's so old fashioned. Like everything's on paper, right? And everything requires. For example, I know that a lot of the paperwork that when we submitted was English, but I remember at one point being told that why isn't this in Urdu? To which I was like, because we don't we what? So which again, there's the language issues considering we're in a country where 60% of the population is illiterate. So there's institutional problems that I think exist, on the outside. No matter how educated you might be, at day's end, you're still dealing with a system that deals with, its legalities in a completely different language. It's
Mm,
only when you start moving into the high court and beyond where I think
mm,
it becomes a little bit more English prevalent.
mm,
But for someone who doesn't really read or speak Urdu, for me it was just kind of like, oh, what's going on here, right? But I mean, again, I think Fazli would be the
mm,
authority on this.
mm,
Okay, so Bilal highlighted the issue very adequately. That one of the aspects is that the courts are overburdened, and there are a lot of frivolous issues. There are a lot of frivolous issues. I'll give you a very simple example. The average civil judge, right, in any given court, is usually his cause list, meaning the number of cases that that judge has to listen to every day, is it spans between 85 to 150 per
in a
day
day.
in a day,
Good God.
right?
Oh boy.
And I have even seen cases in magistrates' courts where the cause list has been above 300.
Oof.
So, and it's a funny anecdote. I was once representing a client in Rawalpindi, and he had been wrongly a warrant for his arrest had wrongly been issued by the RDA, the Rawalpindi Development Authority. Um, and the allegation against him was that the RDA had sealed a premises and and he had allegedly broken that seal and re-entered into that premises. Now, and here's where it gets both funny and sad. Um, the thing is that he had sold that property 3 years ago before this even happened. He didn't own that property. He didn't have anything to do with that property. And despite the fact that he presented all of those documents in court, and he told the judge that look, there's no case made out against him. It's not his property. He has nothing to do with it. And this is a case of mistaken identity, and it's because the RDA just didn't update their records. It still took a surprisingly 8 months for him to be acquitted.
Wow.
And
Good
this
God.
was, and this is an old man who had trouble climbing stairs. He's a heart patient.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he had to be in court for every hearing. And when we presented all of these documents, and we even got the person who he sold the property to, right? We even called that person, and that person in court admitted that yes, he is the owner of the property now. He sold it to him 3 years ago. And even still, it took 8 months for the court to pass an acquittal order. And when I asked the judge, uh, in a very the बेचारे तरीके से the 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 judge said to me that counsel, I have 350 cases on my list, and this is the story of my life. I have 350 cases every day. I'm sorry, but I can't fix your case any sooner than at least 1 month from now.
So this is one of the reasons why people actually avoid going to the
Oh yeah.
legal battles just
Oh
to
yeah.
save the hassle because they're not
Oh,
even
good.
well equipped with.
Okay, so there's this. There's also this interesting thing that's. It's a bit of a segue into something else, but there's this doctrine which is being developed now by the superior courts, and that's called the doctrine of limine control.
Okay.
And under this, limine means at the start, at the onset, right?
Right. Okay.
So basically, under this doctrine now, what judges are doing, or at least the superior court judges are doing, and they've asked the lower judiciary as well, that look, if a case is not made out, if a case seems frivolous, or if it is not supported by any documentation, dismiss that case at the very first step. Why are you adding a burden to yourself, and why are you burdening a litigant? Why are you burdening the respondents with having to come and appear and defend a case which has no merit to begin with, or which has nothing, no leg to stand upon? And
Really? That's a new thing? That's new? Like I would have thought this is something that existed well before.
no, it is, but this, as a codified doctrine, it being
Ah.
enforced.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
because
Okay.
basically, like previously, if a case was being dismissed, so if we're talking about like a civil case, right? So it would be under procedural provisions like Order 7, Rule 11 of the Civil Procedure Code, or something along those lines, right? Where a case is not maintainable or if a case is before the wrong court. But now they're saying that look, you guys have to be because civil judges are the first line. They're where all of this load arrives, and then that's where it goes up from. So all the superior court judges are now like, look, this is the you guys are the first line. You should be more discerning about the kind of cases you admit to hearing. And
That.
basically, they're asking the judges to focus on the procedural aspects and see whether this case has any life to it, whether it's going to stand, whether it's going to go forward or not. And if it's not, then you nip the evil in the bud and you say that, look, I'm sorry your case is not made out. You should not put the courts or an innocent party through all of this hassle of having to hire a lawyer and then come to the hearing and then pay them and then pay the cost of coming to court, etc. So this is something that the courts have now started taking more seriously, and this has been the case since 2019. Yeah, since 2019.
Hmm.
Huh. So pretty recent.
Yeah,
Pretty recent.
like I said, its implementation as a doctrine is something that's very new in Pakistan.
Wow. Okay. Um, yeah, I'm actually glad because then retroactively considering what I went through as well. Okay, sure. I mean, like you said, 300 cases in one day. I'm usually wiped out if I have more than seven a day. I can't
Yeah,
imagine what it's like with 300. Like,
and
God
at the
no.
same time, I mean, like if we boil it down to like brass tacks, right? how much is a judicial officer being remunerated? Is he being remunerated enough to go through 300 cases a day?
Oh yeah,
That's
Yeah,
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
course.
like, obviously, I mean, uh, in an ideal world, if a judge has X number of cases, right? So whether it's 10 or 100, in an ideal world, he has to sit down the night before and he has to at least read all of those files and see that, okay, fine,
Mm-hmm.
this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
what's going to happen in this case, right? But
Right.
where a judicial officer at the district level is not making that much, what incentive does he have to actually put
Yeah.
that time in?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
especially considering that in so many cases there are frivolous cases. It is frivolous litigation.
Wow. Had not thought of that. Not gonna lie, I had really had not thought of that.
Yeah, I
Wow.
mean that's one thing that really gets sort of people miss that. It's really missed a lot because we do criticize
Mm.
our judiciary in a lot of cases, right? We
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that
yeah.
Mm.
judge काम नहीं कर रहे हैं, ये क्यों बैठे हुए हैं? But
Yeah, I'm
we
now
really,
trying to wear their shoes and
yeah,
understand that side. Yes.
yeah, exactly. Because as a lawyer, we see both sides of the picture, right?
Hmm.
Because,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
one of the roles that we have as lawyers is also, sort of calming down agitated clients. Like, look, relax. We understand that it's frustrating,
Yeah.
but you also have to understand that this is a process, right? It's not something that can be sped up,
Hmm.
Mm.
and we can try
Yeah.
to
Mm.
expedite it, right? But you have to understand that there are some constraints that we have and some constraints that the court has. And it's not something that we can impose on the court कि नहीं आपने लाजिमन मेरा केस आज सुनना ही सुनना है, because you also don't want to risk offending a judicial
Yeah.
officer
Hmm.
or
Oh, true,
offending the
true,
court,
Yeah.
true.
um,
Yeah. That
because
makes
at the end of
sense.
the day they're human as well. And I think that's something that we have to understand, and it's an aspect that deserves a little more appreciation. That they're human as well.
Yeah.
That's very
Well,
valid.
actually, I would try to move some specific battles because this discussion can go a very long way, but I would try to come to a few specific battles, like you just stated something about custody battles that people go through.
Yeah,
So I'll come to the legal perspective of that, but there are very specific battles like Dr. Bilal, you would be very well equipped coming from the emotional perspective of divorces and custody
Oh
battles
yeah.
and co-parenting and all
Oh
of that.
yeah.
It has major, major, major impact on, and not just on the couple. The
Oh yeah.
impact lies on the children as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what is your experience in your professional life?
Okay.
And also, I will also like you to tell us something about co-parenting, which doesn't really exist in Pakistan, to be very honest.
Mm.
But how co-parenting in a very civil way can actually make it a better impact on a kid's life.
Okay. So funnily enough, I've been hearing amongst my clients, like the ones who are on this road, many of the women specifically, because obviously it's mostly women, they've all said to some extent that even if this ends, I will not eliminate my ex partner's role in my children's life. I will
Hmm.
still make sure that there's some role
Hmm.
there, right? Now, the thing is that when it comes to this, usually the first step that almost all of them go through is, should I stay? Should I leave? They literally just come to my office and before they do anything, they're just like, should I stay with him or should I leave? To which I'm like, what do you want to do? I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. To which I was like, I'm not going to answer that because that's not my decision to make,
Yes.
right? I am here to help you find peace with whatever you're looking to do. But yeah, sure, let's go into what the who's, the what's, and the whys. But essentially, what they most women, I won't say all because that's not fair, most women are just looking to have a safe space where they can sound their thoughts. They don't want to be told that, oh no, it's very difficult as a single mother, out in the evil world where men want to take advantage of you. To which I was just like, yeah, but very honestly, I mean, sounds a bit cynical, but men want to take advantage of every woman they come across, married or otherwise.
Hmm.
We know
Hmm.
this. I mean, that's not really news to anyone,
Yeah.
right? So how is this any different from just another day in a woman's life?
Hmm.
One. And two, when it comes to the children, are you doing right by them? Now, most times they'll be like, oh, I'm going to stay in this marriage because the children need a two-parent home. To which I was like, really? Is it worth the next 20 years of beatings? Is it really worth it? And when it's put that bluntly, they're usually like, oh, oh, they haven't really contemplated that because they
Yeah.
put the children first. They think that the empathy or the sympathy of putting the child first will somehow diminish the level or the intensity of the abuse they face.
Mm,
But the problem, unfortunately, with that is I always have to tell them, if you do this, there's a risk you will start resenting your children.
mm,
Because I did this for you. I didn't do this for me. I did it for you. And the
exactly.
kids' reaction is, but I never asked you.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
didn't know. Why would
At the
you?
end, at the end, the
Right?
accountability will lie towards the children when they grow up.
Right. So again, it's nasty no matter how you slice it. Which
Mm,
is why I often tell them that, look, it's gonna suck for you both ways. You're gonna be in pain either way. Pick the one where there's less pain for you.
mm,
Right? And I would say that again, just make sure that you do right by the children, whether you stay or not.
mm.
That's all, right?
Yeah. Because I
So
think anytime if a person is suffering from this, majority of the time, women, again, not gonna gender, I'm not gonna be gender biased, but they don't even see that picture where they are passively ruining the whole
yeah,
family structure by staying, keeping in mind that they're doing it for the kids. So
right,
passively, they are actually just ruining the whole dynamics.
right. That's right.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my take. Firstly, what would you say?
Yeah, I would like to know the legal
Side
things
of it,
out
yeah.
there. Yes, that comes with divorces and custody battles.
Okay, so like Bilal said, just like a therapist, this is one of the biggest things that we face when a client comes to us, especially in the familial context, and when we're talking about divorce. Uh, they ask that should I do this, right?
Mm,
And that's a question that we encounter very often in family proceedings. Like, should I do this, right? Should I file this case? Because it's not just the question of leaving or staying. The fact that you've left and the fact that you've subjected the family now to litigation, and that means you've aired your dirty laundry in a public forum,
Oh
that
yeah.
is that comes with its own sort of baggage, and that is something that will be portrayed in a negative light later on,
Mm,
regardless of what that person was going through. But like Bilal said, we as lawyers, I like to tell my clients that, look, as lawyers, we are the ultimate enablers, right? So if you want to go, or if you want to stay, or if, regardless of what you want to do, I can tell you the options and I can tell you the procedure. At the end of the day, we can't make that decision for you. The decision has to be yours because you're the one who has to live with the consequences of that decision, one way or the other.
mm,
mm.
So
Wow.
that's
Okay.
one
Wow. Okay.
aspect. That's one aspect, and it's also like I mean, not to make light of
mm,
this sort of issue, but generally with all clients, not just family related issues, but even with commercial issues and even with civil issues. It's sort of a running joke between friends. Like, look, we're not just lawyers; we also have to counsel our clients, and I think we should start charging extra for that. Um,
Yeah.
because if you work abroad, like there it's much more clinical and sterile. So if you go to a lawyer, you know that, okay, I'm going to a lawyer, I'm going to sue this person, I'm going to do this, like tuck 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 tuck, right? But here you start involving your lawyer in the decision making process. Should I do this, should I do that,
Mm,
and then we get bombarded with other types of questions, like what is the repercussion going to be.
mm,
uh,
mm.
and to that, we're like, look, we can tell you what the legal repercussions are going to be, but what your personal repercussions are going to be, there's no way that we can predict that, and there's no way that we can tell you what that is going to be.
Wow. Okay. So, that's funny because the thing is, I've had the reverse of that happen where clients will come to me, we'll go through the mental health component, how to deal with it, and they're like, "Well, what'll happen if I go through this legally?" To which my reaction is, well, you should probably get a lawyer on that, but I'm pretty sure the end result is you're divorced. So, you know, so what do you want me to say? Like, no, do you think that this will be a problem? Do you think people will find out? What if they make allegations? I'm like, what if they don't? I don't know. I'm
Oh,
not a
that's like
lawyer.
10
So,
hours of conversation I can do on just that topic.
Yeah.
right? So it's again, I mean, you don't have a bad idea actually. Just have a joint lawyer therapy office. You
Yeah.
break them up, and I'll fix them up. So you know,
Yeah.
so no,
I
that's
think this Uh, I think from this, we can sort of segue into how necessary it is to also have legal counseling for sorry, psychological counseling for people who are going through legal battles, and that's not something that's
oh yeah,
discussed.
Of course, of course.
You
Uh,
have like in the US and in the UK, you have dedicated mental health professionals who specialize in
yeah,
people going through legal battles and
yep,
tough legal battles,
yep.
whether they're
So
victims of crimes or whether they're it's a custody issue or a divorce issue.
right.
You have dedicated professionals for that.
mm, mm,
So I'm glad that you bring that up because that's something that I do in a roundabout way. The thing is that most oftentimes with people who are going through this, it essentially boils down to a grief intervention.
mm,
Not bereavement, that's death. Grief being, the trauma associated with emotional loss. So
mm,
whether you're losing your partner, you're losing your relationship, or you're losing the kids, after death, the biggest provocator of grief symptoms is divorce.
mm,
Like that is clinical. That is known. That is a clinical statistic. That after someone dying, the next, greatest sort of provocation of grief comes from a failing relationship. Usually long-term spouse, not short-term, long-term, right? So, and I've often told a lot of people that when they do this, that look, you're going to go through a lot of stuff. It's really heavy. Please take this seriously, okay? I mean, not your partner for all his or her faults is not all bad. So please make sure that you treat this with the appropriate, level of what's the word I would use? Solemnness, basically, that you are signing up for loss, and it doesn't get easier. You just get better at carrying it.
mm,
But then again, I mean, grief is generally a fairly new concept in this region. So, in the clinical context, at least, I haven't met any other grief therapists so far in my 5 years of practice here. So
Yeah, and
it's just ridiculous.
one thing that I would like to circle back to that Hifza talked about, especially the co-parenting aspect.
Mm,
One of the biggest things that we see here is that when divorce and custody issues become contentious, the split happens, but the split is very acrimonious. It's
yeah,
very uh,
oh, yeah,
uh, it's it's a nuclear sort of
yeah.
explosion.
It's
it gets
vicious.
nasty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very nasty. And I was listening to this talk by a judge of the Lahore High Court, Justice Jawad Hassan, a very insightful judge. Um, he highlighted that in the majority of cases, especially when it comes to either custody or divorce proceedings, right, or khula proceedings, the body of the complaint or the body of the petition is usually just maligning the other party. It's not focused on. Okay, so
Yeah,
for a bit of context, when you look at guardianship of children, right, the primary consideration, which is supposed to be for the courts, is the welfare of the minor.
of
So
course.
the question, which is supposed to be, foremost in the judge's mind, is what is best for this child? Do I put him with
Mm,
which parent, right? Or in some cases, even which grandparent? Sadly, uh, in our legal system, it has devolved into one party just slinging every sort of filth at the other party and maligning them, and
yeah.
especially from the man's side, just maligning, the poor mother. And I'm not saying that all of these allegations may be false, but I think that what is necessary is that you should focus more on what the child requires as opposed to
Hmm.
just venting your own venom.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
You're right. Actually,
Mm,
it's funny that you mentioned this because actually another topic which kind of I find funny to overlap with this is that oftentimes they will bring back all kinds of rubbish from when they worked together or when they met initially, and it's just oh, you're this kind of person because back then you did this and you thought this and that. I mean, it's ridiculous to me how prevalent this belief that you can malign the female party from the get go. And in my experience, it's usually been something along like when there's an acrimonious breakup, there's always this accusation. If they were working together, obviously that oh, you were always like this even when I met you at the workplace,
mm,
right? And which in my mind is just kind of like, well, if what the hell were you doing back then, like seriously. And it just kind of annoys me that this kind of casual sort of slander relating to the workplace is so easy to do,
And they
right?
sort of
I mean,
whitewash over the fact that they were both running with the same crowd at that time, and
exactly,
exactly where
exactly, right,
they met.
right. It's just I find it so funny that there's this weird sort of double standard, I think is the word I would use, that it's so easy to completely ruin a woman's reputation in court and otherwise than it is for a man. Because again, to go back to one of our earlier episodes, men are just like this. No,
mm,
no, that's not acceptable. That's absolutely not acceptable, right? I mean, again, you
One aspect of this, sorry, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think one aspect of this is, I think that this is just a different form of manifesting something that we see in divorce cases in the West, is that when a divorce or a breakup of a relationship becomes acrimonious, everything you liked about the other party is now everything that you hate about the other party. And
mm,
all of those similarities that you share constantly remind you of everything that you hate about the other person. And the only difference, I think, in these two situations is that here you get a license to then start bad mouthing the other party, whereas there it's uh, it's not it's ingrained in their society that okay, fine, we couldn't make it work. Let's just cut it off here, and then we move our separate ways.
mm,
mm,
mm.
that's wow. I had not made that connection that way. Wow.
We get too much into that slandering and the revenge mode while we are going through the legal battle of divorce, that both parties actually just totally forget about the actual purpose of finding the right path towards bringing up their kids in a civil way. So it
Yeah,
Mm,
just
because
becomes,
here we
yeah,
have a license. We feel that we have a license to do this,
exactly.
whereas that
mm,
should not be the case.
Yeah, yeah.
And
that's wow.
it's something
Wow.
that we see in divorce proceedings, especially, is at times a client will come up to you and they will say that you weren't aggressive enough in court, right?
Hmm.
You basically their issue would be why are you focusing on the technicality of the case? Why are you not bashing on the other party? Why are you not
Right.
demeaning them? Why are
I
you
think I will also blame the media for that, because this is how it happens in media, that they would be expecting a very aggressive outcome from the lawyer side, that at the end it's just about getting back to the other person rather than finding a solution to the problem.
that? And I think they feel that engaging a lawyer, uh, they have sort of transferred all of their issues into the lawyer, and now
To
it's the
them.
lawyer's job
Mm,
to sort of
Yeah.
take all those things out on the other party. And
right.
That's why
Okay.
the counseling and the legal
yeah,
dispute has to
and
go
if you
together.
and if they happen to see you, like obviously because the legal fraternity is not that big. I mean, if you're doing a certain type of cases, or if you're practicing in a certain jurisdiction, you know most of the other lawyers, and they know you, and you're on good terms, and your friends and your colleagues were at one point you were in school together, or at one point you worked together. And it's very common that even after a very heated argument in court, you and the other lawyer would exit together, chatting about what happened last Wednesday with some other friend, and you'll go and you'll have a cup of tea or you'll have a cup of coffee,
Mm.
and by virtue of this, one or both of the clients would think that you are in cahoots with the
They're
other person.
involved. They're
No,
involved.
not involved. They're like, you are in cahoots with the other party,
Ah,
and
wonderful.
Oh.
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
that is why
Oh.
my case is
Oh, I
taking
never
so long.
thought of
That is,
that.
That's
Yeah.
that's actually yeah, that's valid actually. That
yeah,
is very valid. Yeesh. Actually,
yeah.
so funny that you mentioned this actually because this makes me sort of now I'm kind of reevaluating all my interactions in court and how frustrated I was, and I'm just like, oh, you screwed up, you screwed up massively because they were just doing their job. So yeah, that's I would say still say thank you because a new perspective is always welcome. I mean, that's kind of what we do here.
I think, look,
Um,
there is no way. I don't think that you should fault yourself for that at all. The reason being is that, look, you were like, when you're going through something, whether it's a relationship or whether it's a legal battle or anything, right? You are in the thick of it, so you have tunnel vision. You only see what is in front of you, and you don't see the broader picture, or the holistic sort of environment in
yeah.
which all of that is taking place.
No, you're right. The biases they were very out in the open around my time. I actually do have something of a topic that's been bugging me for a while because of the client conversations I've been having. Where do you draw the line with workplace harassment? Like, what's the I mean,
I was coming to
I'll come
that.
to my side on this in a moment. I'm actually really curious as to what the legal side of this is, because a lot of times, in a nutshell, when clients come to me, they're like, "Was that harassment or was that flirting?" To which I was like, "What? How do you mistake the two? They're
Yeah.
like what? Like what? What?" So I'm really curious. What is there a legal precedent for this or anything?
I think,
I want to before
yeah,
you answer, I'm sorry. I want to add on that. Like I think every single person out there who's working in the corporate environment, including me, has faced one way or the other. And it's not just the sexual harassment we are talking about at the
Right.
workplaces. It's the toxic work culture, and work life abuse, I will say. So there are a lot of ways in which people, male or female, they are undergoing the process of they are undergoing work harassment. And the situation in the market, where but doesn't matter where do you live, it's so saturated that it becomes impossible for you to just think about an exit of that place. And it is that part of your life where you face it literally on every day. You wake up and go to the place where the harassment happens at everyday level. So if I'm talking about this region, I know that here the processes are very well defined. If you're going through harassment, if you're living the harassment, and you can initiate a legal battle against it. Does it also happen in Pakistan or not? Is there any law on work harassment or not?
yeah. There's actually there's a specific forum. It's called FOSPA. That's the Federal Ombudsman for workplace harassment.
What is it called again?
Really?
Yeah, yeah. There's wait. Let me just pull up the acronym, and I'll tell you exactly where it is. But the the abbreviation is FOSPA, FOSPHA. Um,
Okay,
yeah,
Okay. HA. Okay.
that's a new information.
That's that. Oh wow! I'm definitely going to be hanging on to
Me
that
too.
one.
yeah. Let me just pull this up. And yeah, so this is the Federal Ombudsman Secretariat for the Protection Against Harassment.
Wow.
Oh wow! Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
it's
You learned something.
Ouch.
Oh wow. Okay. Wow.
FOSPH.
Hmm.
PAH. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Yeah, definitely hanging on to that. Wow.
yeah, there's actually a law that provides for protection against workplace harassment, and this is FOSPA is a dedicated forum where any person aggrieved with workplace harassment can file a complaint with the federal government, saying that, look, this is, I work at XYZ place and I'm facing this sort of harassment.
Oh, wow. Okay. Does that interfere with, say, because a lot of organizations will usually have like an internal committee or something like
Yeah.
that. Does this require that they have some kind of internal, because that will often get in the way,
Yeah.
where
Uh,
the, sorry, go on. Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, because the reason for this platform is that not every place has such committees. Like if you're talking about
Right.
large
Okay.
corporate firms, then yes, they do. But the majority of companies and the majority of workplaces don't have any such, measures in place.
Wow.
But Dr. Bilal, I do have a question from
Yeah.
you. So, a few of the very well-known institutes or companies, I have heard that there are internal teams for the counseling, workplace counseling.
Right.
Um, do you think that they are actually helpful? Because two or three times when I asked for the people who were working in such companies or institute where there were internal teams, the usual response were they're completely useless. So there is no point of going there.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Unfortunately, because what happens is that when these teams are created, they're made very forward thinking. We'll protect the employees, we'll protect rights. But what ends up happening is that they end up behaving like HR. They're there to protect the company. They're not
Hmm.
there to protect the employee rights or in any, I would say, if efficacious manner. They're usually there to kind of, fix it up, solve the problem. At worst, you will probably get like a reprimand or some kind of like the investigation committee is usually the worst thing that they'll do, and then halfway through the proceedings somebody quits,
Hmm.
right, which
Yeah.
then the investigation falls apart, right, because it's just so much easier to quit than it is to go through with that.
Hmm.
I've seen this in almost every organization that where I've worked, where these committees existed. They were not as effective as desired. Because the problem is that if you want them to be effective, they have to exist independently of the organization that they're there for.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
otherwise, you're effectively biased in favor of the organization, and no
Because what's the point?
organization wants this story coming out that XYZ employee of this company harassed another woman or a man or whatever, because then the company looks ineffective,
Hmm.
right?
So
So
what's
the
the point of having this anyway?
well, the thing is, I would say that it's better to know that that exists because, again, at least you will have some kind of recourse. Some recourse is better than none. I'm not
Hmm.
going to comment on the efficacy because, again, I don't speak for all of them. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, the thing is, when a client comes to me and says, were they flirting or was it
Hmm.
harassment? To which
Hmm.
my reaction usually is, well, what was your role in this? Do you want to get offended or do you want to take it as flattery? Which one are you in for?
Hmm.
Right? Because unfortunately, if you're asking me that question, your intentions are not transparent. You
Hmm.
are
Hmm.
part of the problem. You are
Yeah,
part of the problem.
exactly.
Because, again, if there's, I mean, a lot of bigger organizations will have that no dating in the work, no dating co-workers policy. It's
Hmm.
it's very common abroad. Here, not so much. But
Hmm.
if you have that, that's very clear. It's a no tolerance type thing. But
Hmm.
if that's never addressed, unfortunately, that I mean, I'm sure you've encountered this. I know I certainly have. Coworkers getting married, and then a year down the road they're getting divorced, and now all of a
Hmm.
sudden the workplace has now just become really tense,
Oh yeah.
right? So the thing is that you need to approach this with a very proactive mindset. Look,
Hmm.
if you're asking me, was he or she flirting, or was it harassment? If that kind of gives away that you don't know what side you're on,
Hmm.
right? Are you interested in them? Well, I don't know. Are you married? Well, that's besides the point. Okay, so that okay, so I can see why you're asking that, right? So it goes both ways. It's a two-way street. I might be considered very, very hot take for saying that, but I find that it's often a two-way street. Yes, unwelcome attention is always unwelcome, but if you're questioning it, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're part of the problem as well,
Hmm.
right? So, but at the same time, I would also say that because look, mental health is a loop de loop, a roller coaster. All of this, you don't know how someone might interpret your interactions with them.
Yeah.
So which is why I often recommend try and make your communication as clear as possible.
Hmm.
If you're asking someone, hey, do you want to go for lunch?
Hmm.
That's very open ended.
Hmm.
Or you can always say that, hey, listen, do you want to come with lunch for me? It's a 2-for-1 special,
Hmm.
right? And I don't want to pay the full amount. So that's obviously more clear. I mean, it's still vague, but it's still clear in terms of what you're trying to do here, right? So, but the thing is, again, that a lot of people aren't too fond of that because they're like, well, it sterilizes conversation. To which I was like, yes, that's actually preferable to a harassment suit, then, isn't it? Or a harassment allegation.
I
Right?
think so, one thing that I'd just like to add to this, because a few months back there was this harassment case that I was looking at, and it was in a hospital. And I mean, of course, it's part of the general consensus that a lot of workplace harassment happens at hospitals. Right? But, I mean,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, okay, so in this case, what had happened was that a female doctor had she filed a complaint, a FOSPA complaint against the head of a department, and he was called in. He was called in, and he was like they really like put you through it, right? If there's a complaint, and they do take it somewhat seriously. It's not something that okay, fine, this woman has made a complaint, and she's hormonal, or she has vapors or
Mm,
whatever. No, they do take it
mm,
seriously. This is the act under which the complaint is made is specifically made for protecting women from harassment.
mm,
So the guy was called in, and he literally he asked. He didn't even engage a lawyer. He just asked the woman, the female doctor, and he was like, "Look, have I ever made an advance at you?" Right? Um, she's like, "No." But, okay, have I ever called you into my office and asked you to close the door? And she's like, no. He's like, have I ever, cornered you or done anything like this? Because those are the requirements that, that is what harassment is, right? And he very
mm,
methodically, he said, like, what is your grievance? Have I ever been alone with you in my office? And she's like, no. And even he was confused as to why he was there.
mm.
Because if the answer to everything is no, 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 and even the committee was like, okay, madam, if you've never been alone with this guy, you've never been alone in a room with this guy, he's never asked you to close a door, um, he's never made any advance at you, why did you file this complaint?
Mm.
And she was like, he got angry at me. And to which the guy,
What?
the head of the department literally replies like, yeah, because that's my job. If you are negligent in your job, my job is to reprimand you.
Yeah. That's like really this needs explaining.
Yeah, and because my point is that even though this exists, there is potential for its misuse as well.
Yeah.
That's
I
always there.
was.
Yes. Yeah.
That again falls into, I think, a misunderstanding about what these forums are there for. At
Yeah.
times, people
Right.
just want that, oh, I have a specific forum for me. Let me utilize this to sort of, settle some other score or do something, else.
Right.
As far as the
So.
clarity part of the conversation that we're just having, I think it really boils down to the fact that in the West we have HR or workplace policies on dating and relationships because those things are very open and those things are
Mm,
very socially acceptable. Here,
mm,
even though like in metropolitan cities like Islamabad and Lahore and Karachi, these things are more acceptable and a bit more in the
mm,
open as compared to the rest of the country. As far as
mm,
the legal and social framework of our country is concerned, these things are not they're not allowed or they're not encouraged and they're not
mm,
accepted. That is why there is no policy to regulate them. So it's like having, say for example, a drug policy in a place where everything is outlawed, where every kind of drug is prohibited, or having an
mm,
alcohol policy where the consumption of
mm,
alcohol is illegal.
mm.
So you
That
can't
makes.
cater to it. You can't
Mm.
something that the law does not even recognize its existence.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of alarming to me. That the. I mean, that this forum, obviously with very good intent and very forward-thinking intent, could so easily be waylaid by something as errant as he harassed me, and when you get down to it, it's just kind of like, no, he yelled at me. That's harassed me,
Mm.
right? And I'm just kind of like, what? No, that's. I mean, I've worked in multiple hospitals. That's you're running the risk of killing someone if it really goes sideways.
No,
Yeah.
it was just basically an ego trip where the claim was कि बाकियों के सामने आपने मेरी बेइज्जती कर दी.
Oh no, I completely understand that. The ego thing kind of flares up, but
Yeah.
again, to me, that's kind of that criticism that is very popular in this region, that women can't control their emotions. This plays into that stereotype, right? It kind of proves it right, which is already alarming enough, because look, more often than not, women are more intuitive than men. They understand things far faster than men do. We cannot take that away. The amount of times women's intuition has worked at the hospital where
Yeah.
surgical knowledge did not, is it's jarring, but it's a real thing, right? So I just find it disappointing that someone would actually play into the stereotype and just make, and it's a problematic one no less, and make it so blatantly obvious that, see, this is why we can't take them seriously,
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
and then
right?
you're detracting from all of those genuine cases where somebody did
Yeah.
actually go through something and did experience
Oh yeah,
something.
absolutely, absolutely,
So,
certainly. Just hmm.
that's something that has to be taken into account, and that's something that has to be considered.
Yeah, this but no, this was, wow, that was helpful. FUSPA. Yeah, that's definitely something I'm gonna
Mm.
hold on
No,
to. But
no, it's something that you should definitely recommend, especially to clients who are going through this.
oh yeah.
But I think if we just circle back to the original question on how you can differentiate on whether it was, harassment or whether it was, flirting, I think the question then is, did you enjoy it? I mean,
Essentially. Yeah. Are
yeah.
you did you like it, or are you offended? So
So if you're offended, then it's harassment. If you enjoyed it, then or if you liked it, if you want to welcome the attention, then of course it's not, and you can't then go around and say that it was.
Mm.
fair. Yeah, no, no. That's kind of what's bothering me, though, as a therapist, because it's just like, well, your intentions kind of will determine how this goes, because there's no objective measure really, right? Which is kind of sad, because if anyone else didn't like it, it's harassment for them, but for you it's flirting. That's,
Mm.
I mean, I would
But
like to have an objective measure.
one
Sorry.
other thing, I think that it comes down to how ill prepared we are generally for social interactions, especially when it
Mm.
comes to the
Mm.
opposite
Mm.
sex. Right?
Mm.
Because if you've spent some time abroad, you are, I wouldn't say equipped, but I think you were slightly better equipped to handle interactions with, the
To be
opposite
very
gender.
honest,
But
yeah,
if
to
you've
be very
spent
honest,
all of your life here, and then, if you spent most of your time studying in all boys schools or all girls schools, right?
right, yes,
You
that's
Right.
the
have
problem.
absolutely no idea
Mm.
how to
Mm.
interact.
Yeah.
You could be giving somebody a death stare, thinking that I'm
Yeah,
making lovey-dovey eyes at that person.
yeah, 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 yeah.
The other
I think
person is
that's
so
the root cause.
scared.
That's a good one, actually.
Yeah, that's actually the root cause, because while growing up, it is a very you're even when you're studying in a co-education system, even then there is some invisible line in between the two opposite gender, and we are actually never taught to coexist in a civil way. Not everything
Mm.
has to be sexual in nature. So I
Exactly.
think that's actually the root cause, that we are never taught how to coexist in the same room. That's
Yeah.
why even a sudden professional remark can become a flirtation if you want it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's fair. Yeah, that's actually a good point. I hadn't considered that, again, because shame on me. Never really remembered that there's single sex schools as well. Yeah, that would do it. That would do it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That would be a big part of it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Time's running out. I just want to
Oh
discuss
yeah.
another thing. I do want to discuss a lot of things, but there is one element that I certainly want to discuss. When you look at the bigger picture, law definitely has an upper hand to define how the society look at certain things. So if law is defining that mental health is important, then one way or the other the society will start looking at that way. So law does have that influence. So there is one issue that usually would not be taken seriously, as per my knowledge in this region: online harassment. Every other person is going
Ooh,
through cyber
ooh.
issues now.
Oh yeah,
So I would like both perspective, like coming from an emotional, because I think in that state, because usually majority of the time now even teenagers go through certain things,
oh yeah,
and
yeah.
they would feel extremely powerless and
Oh
extremely
yeah.
isolated even. So how do they cope up
Right.
emotionally, and how is the law supporting that? Is there a policy to go through the cyber law, which is also
So
implemented upon?
from the mental health component, the problem I have personally, like as a clinician and as a person, is that the rampant access to online interactions means that the anonymity afforded makes it easier to attack people,
Right.
right? Because now you can create a fake account within seconds. You can create a fake name, fake whatever, and you can just be the most vile, atrocious, complete, just troll. I mean, that's the word everyone like. You can just be a troll,
Hmm.
and you can just go to town and have absolutely zero consequences,
And it
and I
gets so
mean
dark.
zero,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that cyberbullying, I'm a little more sort of, shall we say, I'm a little happier with, because it's easier. Because when it's with teenagers, it's a little easier to figure out what's going on. Because
Mm,
again, WhatsApp groups and everything, teenagers are very social that way. There's no
mm,
anonymity between them.
mm,
They'll know who's doing what,
mm,
right? So there's a greater way to intervene there,
mm,
right? Unless you're talking about stuff like, putting up selfies on Insta and randos commenting. That's different.
mm,
Um, because again, we come back to the same thing: the overt, um, anonymous nature of online interaction means that the hypersexualization of minors is now becoming a real thing. As
yeah.
I'm sure you both know, that AI has now kind of been like, everyone's saying don't put up your kids or teenagers' pictures because it's scraping their pictures now and promoting, AI generative
Yeah.
pornography using
Yeah.
their faces and whatnot. So there's that. It's a mess, and the thing is that unfortunately, what's it, Gen Z or Gen Alpha? It's one of these two.
Well,
They've
Gen Alpha
literally
has
grown
started
up.
from 2025 though.
Well, yeah, there we go. So they've grown up with this technology in their hand,
Mm,
right? We are subject to the greatest unregulated experiment on human psyche,
mm,
which is still taking place right now, because we have no goddamn clue what's going to come out of it. Even though we're seeing, they are the one generation characterized by mental health dysfunctions from the get go:
mm,
anxiety, depression, self harm tendencies, suicidality. I could go on and on and on about this topic, about how much I absolutely hate social media.
mm,
But to boil it down, just for brevity's sake, is that it is destroying any kind of healthy mental function that should have existed
Yeah.
otherwise, right?
mm, mm.
So yeah, firstly, your take.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if we talk about it from a legal perspective, the law covering this is PICA. I mean, it's the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act.
Hmm.
Even though it's a controversial law, it has attracted a lot of controversy, and now some new amendments have been made to it, which has journalists up in arms. But
Mm,
under the act, it really does. It is making an impact with regards to online harassment. And from what I've seen, at least up until the time that its enforcement was with the Federal Investigating Agency, from what I've seen from cases that I've been a part of personally, that I've assisted on, or that I've guided people through, um, what I've seen is that what the authorities do, especially in the cases of inappropriate pictures or videos where people are being harassed or blackmailed, what they do is that when the complainant makes a complaint, in a very non-judgmental manner, they listen, they take in your complaint, and then what they do is that they first reach out to the other person unofficially. And the reason
Hmm.
that there are very few. cases reported under the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act and for online harassment is because the majority of cases are sorted out by the authorities
Unofficially.
unofficially. Unofficially. And I think that given
Right.
the society that we live in, that is a very big service that we're doing. It's not something that goes reported. I think that it's something that has to be appreciated because at the end of the day, whether those inappropriate pictures of women or of girls or even of guys, whether they're
Mm.
original or whether they're doctored or whatever the context in which they were taken or in which they were shared, become public, that has the potential to ruin everybody's life,
Mm.
right? So
Mm.
I think the fact that they take care of it in a candid manner and they reach out to the perpetrator and they tell them that, look, we've received this complaint against you. Either you stop what you're doing, you apologize, and you never do it again, right?
Mm.
And if you do, we will move forward with the complaint, and then we will use every legal avenue
Mm.
to end your life, basically. And that is a threat
Wow.
that works. That is a threat that works, and it has led to the person, stopping what he's doing. Um,
Yeah.
and even in cases where that I've been aware of, where the person who was harassing was actually in an influential position, who himself
Right.
was
That
in,
happens a lot. That happens a
in
lot.
a government organization and was in a very influential position. But when the complaint was made against him and the thing became known, the authorities reached out to him and they told him that, look, you are in XYZ position, right? If you
Mm.
don't stop, not only is this going to ruin your personal life, but it's going to affect your career in a very adverse manner, and you are not going to be happy with how that happens. And regardless of
Mm.
who you have call or who you know, this is basically going to ruin you.
Go figure.
Uh,
Okay.
And that
time
has worked.
Time's actually running out, but I do have one question that I actually wanted to know myself from you, Fazli. So I'm coming back to the topic that we have already discussed, the custody battles. I just want to know that whenever a couple starts to have that custody battle in Pakistan, for example, they do not know what the actual law states. So is there any clear cut black and white rule in custody battle when it comes to underage kids or post 18 plus 18 kids that everyone should be aware of before going into the battle?
Okay,
Because if you
so
are aware, then you can just let go of the whole battle and you can have that
okay,
like
so
implemented in your life.
yeah, um, okay, so there is no hard and fast rule now. It's basically the guiding principle on what determines custody is the welfare of the minor. Like the fundamental law governing disputes relating to custody and guardianship are the Guardianship Act, and then the procedural law is the West Pakistan Family Courts Act. And
Mm.
under both of these laws, the stated objective of the law is the preservation of the family and the welfare of the minor when it comes to the Guardians and Wards Act. As a general rule, because we live in a society where Islamic law or Sharia law pervades all aspects of the law,
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
the courts are required to take into consideration the personal law which governs the minor. So, for example, if the person is a Hanafi or a Shafi or belonging to one of
Different
the
sects.
Shia schools of thought, right? The Itna Ashari or whatnot. So that is something that has to be taken into consideration. As far as major children are concerned, children who cross the threshold of 18 years of age, right, they are considered adults and they're not subject to the Guardians and Wards Act. So there's nothing which
Right.
regulates their custody. They can pretty much
Okay.
choose to, live with either parent or, not live with any parent because they don't have to anymore.
Mm.
As far as minor children are concerned, the general principle is the mother is the best suited to take care of minor children,
Mm.
um, unless and until it can be shown that. it's not in the minor's best interest,
Hmm.
Hmm.
which again feeds into the fact, people
Okay.
start slandering the mothers
Yeah.
in custody
Yeah. Yeah.
battles, raising all sorts of allegations. But even then, even despite that, our courts have categorically held that the personal proclivities or the character of the mother does not necessarily mean that she cannot do what is in the best interest of her child.
Hmm.
So even, and I like to tell my
Hmm.
clients that even in the case where the courts have said that if the mother is even engaged in an immoral activity, that still does not negate the fact that she knows what's best for her child.
Yes.
That's fair.
Yeah,
So
goes
Yeah,
both
that makes
ways. A
sense.
person can be the worst husband, but he can still be the better father. So yeah, goes
yeah,
both ways.
exactly. No, and in recent times, like when we started this conversation, I referred you to a case recently where a child psychiatrist had been referred to. In that case, it was actually the father that was being considered as the
Hmm.
better guardian.
Hmm.
Right. Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. That
So,
makes sense.
and I have seen
So
cases.
there
I
is
have
no
seen
hard and
cases.
fast rule. It's the gray area. You still have to
It's the
fight the
great because
battle.
again, the fundamental duty on the court is the welfare of the child, and
Hmm.
to the extent that the duty that the court plays or the role that the court plays is called loco parentis. Loco parentis
Hmm.
means that the court is in place of the parent. So when making an order in regards to custody of a child, the judge has to think as if he himself or she herself is the parent of that child.
Okay.
That is the duty which
Nice.
is imposed upon, or that is the burden which is placed upon these courts. And I was having a discussion with a judge. This was a couple of weeks back, and they had recently conducted a seminar at the Federal Judicial Academy for guardian judges and for family judges. And I recommended that they should also incorporate some sort of psychological training for judges so that they
Hmm.
can also judge the effects that these things are having on the children, and they can judge which parent would be in a better situation or in a better place to take care of the needs of the child.
Hmm.
Wow.
Um,
Okay. That's amazing, actually.
Before I wrap up, I just want to discuss this last thing. Just like you said, that there is some special training when it comes to custody that a judge can undergo to understand the emotional side of the story as well. What do you think is the future of, for example, right now we are slowly getting to the point where we can understand that, let's say, the legal battles and mental health issues, they might seem a totally different discipline, but they are intertwined together, they are related to each other. Is there any future where legal frameworks and the mental health services can actually work together, collaborate together to solve the complexities of the situation, be it a divorce, be it workplace harassment, be it any other crime? Is there any future in the law that we can expect in the coming future?
Yes, I think the courts are not they're not oblivious to these things, and it's one of the considerations that is now being incorporated in our judicial policy. If we talk about Islamabad, and this is not just with regards to family disputes, this is also with regards to civil disputes relating to property and relating to other matters.
Exactly, yes.
Now, when you file a case, right, uh, after the preliminary motions, the court will actually ask the parties whether they would like to refer the matter to mediation. And then the court
Oh.
orders, yeah, the Islamabad High Court has actually set up a mediation center where they have accredited mediators. And they actually then try to mediate the dispute between both of the parties. And that, in my experience, is less, it's less hasslesome and I think much more cathartic than going through the whole uh, litigation, the whole
Court
course of
system.
Yeah,
litigation. or the adversarial process where you're both enemies, each trying to fight for their own scrap of meat. Whereas when you
Right.
go to mediation, you basically come to a consensus, and both of the parties come to some sort of a compromise, saying that okay, fine, I'm going to take two steps forward, and the other party also takes two steps forward, and they meet at some sort of a middle ground. So to answer your question, Nilsa, I think that there is definitely a future where this is taken into account, and it's definitely it's a conversation that is happening on some level. And I think, considering our social structure and the sort of archaic law that we have inherited and that we're trying to build upon in this modern society, which we're I think very unequipped for. Um,
Mm.
I think that the fact that we're having this conversation is itself something that's very positive, and it's indicative that it's going to improve over time.
That's the dream.
Yeah. Dr.
That's the dream.
Bilal,
Yes.
any last thing from your side? What does an ideal future look like in your
In,
books?
in what regard? With legal and mental?
Yes, together.
Honestly, I would, if we lived in a perfect society, I would love it if we were, from our side, the mental health side, we were made a part of the legal process. In that, this entire process could be sped up, or it could be expedited, or whatever, keeping in mind how this is affecting the mental health, how it's doing this and that. But unfortunately, I don't see how that would overall cater to the quality of the outcomes, because at day's end, I recognize, again, because Fazli's made that very clear, procedure is key to a lot of legal matters, right? Because they have to be very careful with how they proceed, because like the FOSPA incident that he mentioned, that's an abuse of procedure. Our role, I would like if we were a bit more considered in the process, especially when it comes to humanistic matters, divorce, paternity, or child care and whatnot. In those matters, it would make sense. Inheritance matters. I mean, again, death, very, very, you have to be a bit more. You have to be a bit more sensitive. There are lots of overlaps between mental health and law, mostly because, again, there's even marriage, right? I mean, again, just the marriage process also changes the way that you are affected. It's not just all the negative, even positive stuff. So I would like if there was more consideration for our involvement in how the rules or the procedures are drafted, or even the law itself. But again, that would require that we have the appropriate, shall we say, the balance between the two. Right now, there's no balance, right? I mean, we don't exist, frankly speaking, we don't. So yeah, we've got space, we've got room, but in due time is what I would say. In due
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Okay.
Okay,
So
just
I think,
before we wrap up, there's just one thing that I want to add to that, just a bit of information, is that the district administration of Islamabad actually maintains a role of psychiatrists. There's actually a
Really?
panel.
okay.
Yeah, there's actually a panel, and this was one of the laws which was referred to by the Islamabad High Court last year
Huh.
in recommending that the child be put to a psychiatric evaluation. Um, so
Really?
yeah, so I think that's something that you can look into, because it's always
Sure.
good to have many more qualified therapists on such panels where they take more things into consideration, take a more nuanced view than the sort of by the book slots that you have to fit into one of these block sort of view that
Fair.
most times are officially registered, or those professionals working in government institutions take.
Yeah. That makes sense. No, super appreciated. I didn't know that. That's helpful. But yeah, there we go. I think, wow, today was an extra long episode
Yes.
for good reason. For good
But
reason.
I'll say it out loud. I'm loving this thing about all of these sessions that I'm learning.
Oh,
I'm getting
yeah.
very brand new information, and especially
Oh, yeah.
Bridges. For this episode, it's all the legal information. So
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you so much, firstly, for providing us that
Same
Thank,
here.
thank,
information.
thank you so
It
much for
would
Thank you
be
so
having
very
me.
helpful
much.
for a lot of people.
Sure, yeah.
Again, an acknowledgement for both of you. It's not easy to just hear other people problems that would be so grave in nature, and for you, firstly, providing the justice, fighting for the justice for your clients, and for you, Bilal, providing hope in the darkest time of anyone. It's absolutely amazing. It's not easy. So, moving on with that acknowledgement, it was an amazing session, very informative, very insightful. But I do hope there comes a point where both of these institutes or both of these frameworks can actually collaborate together and ending up for finding the best possible solution in the best possible time for all the parties. Thank you so much for joining, and to everyone who's listening out there, I think one key takeaway that we can get out of it is that, again, the same thing every episode, that empathy and understanding can actually go a long way. And if you are going through a legal battle, if you are suffering through that, there is help out there. So just approach your loved ones, approach the right ones, talk to someone, and be kind to your own self, be kind to everything. And that actually absolutely changes everything. So, yeah, until next episode, until next topic, I would be looking forward to that and see you guys again. Thank you so much, both of you. And thank you so much, whoever joined and listened. So, until next time, bye bye.
Thank you once again for having me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.